the unrelenting glare of the city lights reflected off the sleek glass walls of Serafina Vance's penthouse apartment, a glittering testament to the empire she had meticulously constructed. Below her, the metropolis hummed with the ambition she had once embodied. But tonight, its energy felt like a suffocating weight. The holographic news feed on her panoramic display cycled through headlines. Vance Holdings under scrutiny, tech titans empire teeters, the Sapphire CEO faces allegations. Before we continue, tell us where in the world you're watching from. Drop it in the comments below. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more powerful content like this. Her hand, usually steady and precise, trembled as she poured another measure of amber liquid into a crystal tumbler. At 35, Serafina had transformed a nascent startup into a global tech powerhouse, a feat that had earned her the moniker, the Sapphire CEO, for her cool demeanor and sharp, unyielding resolve. She had systematically carved out her place, regarding romantic entanglements as an unnecessary distraction, viewing them as vulnerabilities that could be exploited. "Ms. Vance," her AI assistant's calm voice resonated through the spacious living area. "The board members are awaiting your presence for the emergency session." Serafina adjusted the collar of her bespoke silk blouse, her reflection a mask of controlled composure. In the opulent boardroom, a dozen grim faces met her gaze. The accusations were relentless: data manipulation, ethical breaches, corporate espionage. The evidence was speculative, but the court of public opinion had already delivered its verdict. "Serafina," Marcus Thorne, the chairman, stated, his voice laced with a thinly veiled disappointment, "we believe it would be prudent for you to step aside for a period. Allow the independent investigation to proceed. A temporary leave of absence." His words felt like a physical blow, a direct assault on the core of her being. Vance Holdings wasn't just a company, it was her very identity, her legacy. Without it, who was Serafina Vance? Hours later, Serafina sat alone, the silence of her penthouse amplified by the city's distant murmur. Her comms device vibrated incessantly, a deluge of messages from legal teams, public relations specialists, and former associates who now treated her with a chilling distance. She had meticulously built fortifications around her emotions, believing that self-reliance was the ultimate strength. But in this moment of profound crisis, she found herself utterly isolated. As she gazed at the sprawling urban landscape, a decision solidified within her. She needed to vanish, to find a place far removed from the relentless judgment and the suffocating noise, a sanctuary where she could regain clarity and devise a strategy to reclaim her shattered world. She activated her personal terminal, her fingers tracing across the global map. Her gaze settled on a listing, a secluded cottage in Oak Haven, Vermont. Population 912. It was the antithesis of her existence, a deliberate plunge into the unknown, the perfect escape. The navigation system in her rented electric vehicle had lost signal 20 minutes prior, leaving Serafina to decipher the hand-drawn map provided by a genial gas station attendant in the winding autumnal roads of Vermont. The scenery was a dramatic departure from the concrete canyons of her past. Rolling hills ablaze with fall colors, rustic farmhouses, and endless orchards stretching towards the horizon. When she finally located the cottage, a quaint structure with a welcoming porch and aged wooden swing, a wry smile touched her lips. It was charming in an unpretentious way that unnerved her, too authentic, too unvarnished. The following morning, Serafina ventured into Oak Haven's small downtown, a collection of artisan shops, a diner that exuded nostalgic charm, and a vibrant farmer's market arranged in the town square. In her tailored trousers and cashmere sweater, She felt like an anomaly, attracting curious glances from the locals. It was then that she saw her. Elara Thorne was meticulously arranging baskets of heirloom apples at her stall, her dark, lustrous hair catching the crisp morning light as it fell in soft waves around her shoulders. She wore practical overalls and sturdy boots, her hands bearing the honest calluses of someone deeply connected to the land. There was an inherent grace about Elara, a quiet strength that made Serafina pause. "Fresh from our orchard, picked this morning," Elara announced with a warm, inviting smile as Serafina approached. Her voice held a soft, melodic quality that was immediately disarming. "First time at our market?" "Yes, I'm visiting," Serafina replied, suddenly conscious of her own clip-precise urban cadence. "I'm staying at the Meadowbrook Cottage on Elderberry Lane." "Oh, you're the city lady Mr. Abernathy mentioned." Elara's eyes twinkled with genuine interest. "I'm Elara Thorne. Welcome to Oak Haven. What brings you to our little corner of the world?" Serafina hesitated. She couldn't precisely confess she was a disgraced tech CEO in self-imposed exile. "I needed a change of pace, some quiet time for reflection." Elara nodded with an intuitive understanding. Sometimes the best clarity comes when you slow down enough to truly listen to yourself. "These apples," she held up a perfect crimson orb, "they come from trees that have stood here for generations. There's something profoundly grounding about staying connected to the land, to what's real." As Elara spoke about her family's orchard, her passion was palpable. She described the challenges of sustainable farming, the profound satisfaction of nurturing something from the earth, and the unwavering support of their community. Serafina found herself genuinely engaged, not analyzing, not strategizing, simply listening. "Would you like to try one?" Elara offered, slicing a piece from a Honeycrisp. "It's got that Oak Haven sweetness." Serafina bit into the apple, and its crisp, sweet-tart flavor was unlike anything she had ever tasted. Complex, with hints of cinnamon and something undeniably wild. "It's exquisite. That's the taste of home," Elara said softly, and something in her voice resonated deeply within Serafina, stirring an unfamiliar ache. Serafina purchased 3 bags of apples she didn't need, finding herself lingering at the stall, asking questions about farming, about the town, about Elara's life. For the first time in years, her thoughts weren't consumed by profit margins or market share. She was simply present. As she walked back to her vehicle, Serafina found herself glancing back at Elara's stall. The young woman was patiently assisting an elderly patron, her kindness evident in every gesture. Serafina had spent her entire adult life surrounded by individuals who sought something from her: capital, influence, leverage. But Elara had looked at her with simple, authentic warmth, asking for nothing in return. That night, as Serafina sat on the cottage porch with a mug of spiced cider, a sense of tranquility settled over her. She hadn't thought about Vance Holdings or the scandal for hours. For the first time in months, she felt a fragile sense of peace. Serafina had initially planned a week-long stay in Oak Haven, but as days stretched into 2 weeks, then 3, she found herself adapting to an unfamiliar rhythm. She awoke with the sunrise, forsaking her usual pre-dawn alarms, took expansive walks through the countryside, and faithfully visited the farmer's market every Saturday, ostensibly for fresh produce, but primarily to see Elara. Their conversations grew longer with each passing week. Elara would share anecdotes about growing up on an orchard, her aspirations of expanding their operation to include artisan cidos, and the tightly knit community that had sustained her family through periods of hardship. Serafina, in turn, found herself opening up, carefully curating her past but revealing her deep love for classic literature, her clandestine passion for astronomical photography, and her burgeoning appreciation for the unhurried pace of rural existence. "You know," Elara observed one Saturday as they ambled through the market together, "you're different from what I expected when I first saw you." "Different how?" Serafina asked, genuinely intrigued. "Well," You had this formidable aura, like you were perpetually poised for battle. But beneath that, you're just real, thoughtful, kind. Elara paused by a stall showcasing handcrafted pottery. What exactly do you do back in the city? You've been a bit vague. Serafina's stomach tightened. I work in finance, corporate strategy. It wasn't an outright falsehood, but it felt dangerously close to one. Elara nodded, yet Serafina detected a fleeting flicker in her eyes. Not suspicion, but perhaps an intuitive awareness that there was a deeper narrative at play. That afternoon, Elara invited Serafina to visit the orchard. They drove down a gravel lane bordered by ancient maple trees, their leaves a breathtaking tableau of ruby and gold. The thorn orchard was modest, but immaculately kept. A weathered farmhouse with a wraparound porch, a rustic barn, rows of late-season fruit trees, and the heirloom apple varieties that were Elara's pride. This land has been in my family for 5 generations, Elara explained as they walked through the ancient apple grove. My great-great-grandfather planted these trees. Every spring they bloom like something out of a dream. Serafina observed Elara's face as she spoke about the orchard, witnessing the profound love and intrinsic connection she held for the land. It was a sensation Serafina had never known, that deep sense of belonging, of being irrevocably rooted to something larger than herself. It must be wonderful, Serafina said quietly, to have that kind of continuity, that sense of home. Didn't you have that growing up? Serafina's laugh was brittle. My parents were more invested in their social calendar than in cultivating a home. I learned early on that an only person I could truly rely on was myself. Elara stopped walking and turned to face her. That sounds incredibly lonely. The simple observation struck Serafina with a surprising force. She had spent so many years meticulously constructing emotional barriers, convincing herself that absolute independence was the ultimate strength, that she had forgotten what it felt like to be truly seen by another person. It was, Serafina admitted, the words escaping before she could retract them. It is. Without a moment's hesitation, Elara reached out and gently took Serafina's hand. The touch was soft, warm, and entirely unexpected. Serafina's first instinct was to withdraw. Physical intimacy had always made her uncomfortable, but something about Elara's touch felt different, safe. You don't have to be lonely here, Elara whispered. They stood in the orchard, hands linked, enveloped by the scent of apples and the golden embrace of the late afternoon sun. Serafina felt something shift within her, like ancient ice beginning to fracture. It was terrifying and exquisitely beautiful all at once. That evening, Elara invited Serafina to stay for dinner. They cooked together in the farmhouse kitchen, Elara patiently instructing Serafina on how to prepare a traditional apple crumble from scratch, sharing stories of her grandmother's cherished recipes. The kitchen exuded warmth and lived-in comfort, with mismatched chairs gathered around a worn wooden table and mason jars overflowing with wildflowers adorning the windowsill. As they settled down to eat, Serafina realized she couldn't recall the last time she had eaten a home-cooked meal that wasn't meticulously prepared by a personal chef or delivered from an exclusive restaurant. The simple fare, roast chicken, green beans freshly picked from the garden, apple crumble with cream, tasted more profound than any Michelin-starred dish she'd ever consumed. "This is truly remarkable," Serafina said, her voice imbued with genuine appreciation. "Food always tastes better when it's made with love," Elara replied, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. After dinner, they gravitated to the front porch swing, observing the fireflies commence their ethereal dance in the deepening twilight. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, encompassing everything from classic literature to their individual aspirations, to the way the constellations shimmered with greater intensity away from the city's light pollution. "Serafina," Elara eventually murmured, her voice soft in the gathering darkness. I hope you know you can trust me. Whatever brought you here, whatever you're evading, you don't have to bear it in solitude." Serafina's throat constricted. She yearned to confess everything to Alara. The corporate behemoth, the looming scandal, the relentless investigation. But an overwhelming terror gripped her. The fear that the truth would irrevocably shatter this delicate, exquisite connection burgeoning between them. "Thank you," was all she managed to articulate, but she subtly squeezed Alara's hand, a silent affirmation of her sincerity. As Serafina drove back to the cottage that night, a profound realization dawned upon her. She was in an entirely different kind of trouble. Not the legal entanglements she had left behind in the city, but something infinitely more perilous. She was undeniably falling for Alara Thorne, and she found herself utterly at a loss as to how to navigate this uncharted emotional landscape. The crisp days of October painted Oak Haven in fiery hues of crimson and gold, and Serafina found herself indefinitely extending her stay. She rationalized it by claiming the investigation was still ongoing, that she required more time away from the relentless chaos. But the truth was far simpler and far more complex. She couldn't bear the thought of leaving Alara. Their nascent friendship had deepened into something Serafina had never before experienced. They spent countless hours together traversing the scenic countryside, assisting with the autumnal harvest, or simply sitting by the crackling fireplace in Alara's cozy living room, engrossed in books or sharing comfortable silences. Serafina had never been inclined towards physical affection, but with Alara, she found herself craving the casual intimacies, a gentle hand resting on her shoulder, fingers brushing as they exchanged a mug of steaming coffee, the reassuring warmth of sitting close on a porch swing. It was during the town's annual harvest festival that Serafina finally confronted the burgeoning emotions within her heart. The festival transformed Oak Haven's main street into a vibrant celebration of autumn. Elaborate pumpkin displays, aromatic apple cider stands, local musicians performing on a makeshift stage, and families reveling in the crisp October evening. Alara had requested Serafina's assistance in managing the orchard's booth, and Serafina found herself genuinely enjoying the simple pleasure of engaging with customers about heirloom apples and artisan ciders. "You're a natural at this," Alara observed during a brief lull, watching Serafina patiently elucidate the nuanced differences between a Gala and a Fuji apple to a curious child. "I never imagined I would enjoy this." Serafina gestured expansively at the bustling festival around them. "The sense of community, the sheer simplicity. It's so fundamentally different from what I'm accustomed to." "And what exactly are you accustomed to?" Serafina hesitated. "Competition, isolation, a perpetual state of vigilance." She gazed at Alara, who was illuminated by the soft golden glow of the string lights overhead. "You've shown me an entirely different way to exist." As the evening deepened, the local band transitioned to more mellow melodies, and couples began to sway gently in the street. Serafina observed them, a complex mixture of yearning and trepidation stirring within her. She had never danced with anyone, never permitted herself such a profound display of vulnerability. "Would you dance with me?" Alara asked, extending a hand. Serafina's initial impulse was to decline, to concoct a plausible excuse, but something in Alara's eyes, a blend of hope, affection, and infinite patience, compelled her to nod instead. They moved together slowly, Alara's hand warm and reassuring in hers, the other resting gently on Serafina's shoulder. Serafina felt stiff at first, acutely aware of every potential gaze, but gradually she surrendered to the rhythm, to the comforting sensation of being held. "You're overthinking it," Alara whispered, her breath soft against Serafina's ear. "I always overthink things." "Not always. Sometimes you just are. Like when you're engrossed in a book on the porch, or when you're watching the sunset, those moments when you forget to be guarded. Serafina pulled back slightly, searching Ilara's face. You notice a great deal? I notice you, Ilara stated simply, and a raw honesty in her voice caused Serafina's heart to quicken its pace. They stood intimately close now, closer than mere friends, and Serafina could discern the unspoken question in Ilara's eyes. The same question that had been silently building between them for weeks. Serafina had never kissed a woman, had never even entertained the thought. Her infrequent relationships with men had been transactional, emotionally detached alliances that served her career more than her heart. But gazing at Ilara now, feeling the comforting warmth of her proximity, witnessing the gentle affection in her eyes, Serafina realized that everything she thought she knew about herself was profoundly mistaken. Ilara, she whispered, the name a plea rather than a question. It's all right, Ilara murmured softly. Whatever you're experiencing, it's all right. The kiss was tender, tentative, a question rather than a demand. Serafina's world tilted on its axis as Ilara's lips met hers, soft and warm, tasting faintly of spiced apple cider. It bore no resemblance to the calculated kisses she had exchanged with men. This was pure emotion, an unadulterated connection, an undeniable truth. When they eventually broke apart, Serafina was trembling. I've never, she began, then trailed off, overwhelmed. I know, Ilara said, her hand rising to gently cup Serafina's cheek. We don't have to unravel everything tonight. We have time. But even as Ilara uttered those reassuring words, Serafina's comms device vibrated in her pocket. A text message from her legal counsel. Investigation intensifying. Urgent discussion regarding your return to the city. Call me. The stark reality of her former life crashed back into her consciousness, a brutal reminder that she was living on borrowed time. She had constructed this fragile, exquisite connection with Ilara upon a foundation of half-truths and deliberate omissions. Inevitably, the truth would surface, and when it did, it would irrevocably devastate everything. That night, Serafina lay awake in the cottage, her fingers tracing the outline of her lips where Ilara had kissed her for the first time in her life. She understood what people truly meant when they spoke of love, but she also understood that love might not be enough to bridge the chasm between her world and Ilara's. The following morning, Ilara arrived at the cottage, bearing fresh coffee and homemade scones, her smile radiating a bright, hopeful energy. Good morning, she greeted, leaning in to kiss Serafina's cheek with a natural ease that pierced Serafina's heart with a pang of longing. Good morning, Serafina managed, attempting to mirror Ilara's lightness despite the crushing weight of her secrets. They spent the day working in Ilara's garden, meticulously preparing it for the impending winter. Serafina found an unexpected solace in the simple, honest labor, pulling up spent plants, carefully covering tender perennials, meticulously storing tools in the barn. But beneath the veneer of contentment, a growing sense of urgency gnawed at her. She needed to tell Ilara the truth, but she was paralyzed by the terror of losing her. As the sun began its descent, they sat on the porch swing, Ilara's head resting comfortably on Serafina's shoulder. Serafina? Ilara said quietly, her voice barely a murmur. I need you to understand something. Whatever brought you here, whatever you're concealing, and I know you're concealing something, it doesn't diminish how I feel about you. Serafina's breath hitched. How do you feel about me? Ilara lifted her head to meet Serafina's gaze directly. I'm falling in love with you. I know it's fast, I know it's complicated, but it's true. The words Serafina had yearned to hear were also the ones that terrified her most, for now she possessed something profoundly real to lose. Ilara, she whispered, there are aspects of my life things about me that you don't know, things that might irrevocably alter your feelings. Try me, Elara said simply. Serafina gazed into those trusting, honest brown eyes and felt her courage utterly fail her. Soon, she promised. I'll tell you everything soon. But as they sat together in the encroaching darkness, Serafina wondered if she was making a promise she would never be able to keep. November ushered in Oak Haven's first frost, and with it a mounting pressure that Serafina could no longer ignore. Her legal counsel's calls had become increasingly frequent and insistent. The investigation was reaching a critical juncture, and her continued absence was raising pointed questions. The board was growing palpably impatient, and disquieting rumors of a hostile takeover attempt had begun to circulate. But more pressing than any of these corporate threats was the insidious weight of her deception. Serafina had been in Oak Haven for 6 weeks, and her relationship with Elara had deepened into something profound and unequivocally real. They spent nearly every day together, and Serafina had never been happier or more terrified. Elara had opened her heart completely, sharing her dreams of expanding the orchard, her anxieties about potentially losing the land to ambitious developers, her fervent hopes for their shared future. She spoke about that future as if Serafina were an intrinsic part of it, and Serafina found herself desiring that future more intensely than she had ever desired anything in her life. But she was living a lie, and it was slowly, inexorably consuming her from within. The breaking point arrived on a desolate Tuesday morning when Serafina was assisting Elara in repairing a section of fence damaged by the previous night's storm. They worked in a comfortable, easy camaraderie, their breath visibly misting in the cold air when Elara's comms device rang. "It's my cousin Leo," Elara announced, answering the call. "Hey, Leo, what? Slow down. You saw it on the news?" Serafina's blood ran cold as she watched Elara's expression transform from confusion to shock, then to something bordering on abject horror. "Are you absolutely certain it was her?" Elara asked, her eyes finding Serafina's across the field. "Serafina Vance. Yes, I'll check it out. Thanks for the call." Elara ended the call and stared at Serafina for a long, agonizing moment. "Leo says he saw someone who looks exactly like you on the business news. Something about a CEO and a major scandal." Her voice was carefully modulated, almost unnaturally neutral, but Serafina could already perceive the hurt beginning to form in her eyes. "Serafina Vance. That's quite a striking coincidence, isn't it?" Serafina's mouth went utterly dry. "Elara, show me," Elara said quietly. "Show me your identification." With trembling hands, Serafina extracted her wallet and handed over her driver's license. Elara gazed at it for an extended, crushing moment, reading the name aloud. "Serafina Isabella Vance. You lied to me," Elara said, her voice barely a whisper, imbued with a profound sense of betrayal. "For 6 weeks, you've been meticulously lying to me." "I didn't lie precisely. I didn't disclose everything." "You didn't disclose anything." Elara's voice cracked with raw emotion. "You're not a financial consultant. You're the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You're currently under investigation for corporate malfeasance, and you've been masquerading as someone else this entire time." Serafina reached for her, but Elara recoiled, stepping back sharply. "Please, allow me to explain." "Explain what?" "How you've been playing house with a simple country girl, how you've been slumming it in our quaint little town, while your actual life waited patiently for you back in the city." Tears were now openly streaming down Elara's face. "Was any of it real, Serafina? Or was I merely a fleeting diversion while you meticulously hid from your pressing problems?" "It was real," Serafina insisted desperately. "Everything between us is unequivocally real. I came here to hide, yes, but I remained because of you. I stayed because For the very first time in my life, I discovered something worth infinitely more than wealth or power or superficial success. But you couldn't trust me with the truth, Ilara retorted, her own tears now mirroring Serafina's. I was terrified. I was afraid you'd perceive me differently, that you'd dismiss me as just another affluent individual playing games. I was afraid you'd recognize that we inhabit entirely different worlds, and that this could never possibly work. So, you made the decision for me, Ilara said, her voice dripping with bitterness. You decided I couldn't handle the truth, that I wasn't worthy of the truth. That's not... It is precisely that, Ilara interrupted, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. I confessed that I was falling in love with you, and you couldn't even bring yourself to reveal your real name. The words struck Serafina like a series of physical blows. She had irrevocably destroyed the most beautiful thing in her life because she was too paralyzed by fear to be vulnerable, too afraid to place her trust in another human being. Ilara, please, I know I made an unforgivable mistake, but what we have is built on lies, Ilara interrupted. I don't even truly know who you are. You know me better than anyone ever has, Serafina pleaded desperately. The person I am with you, that's the real me, more authentic than I've ever been with anyone. Ilara shook her head slowly. The real you is someone who deliberately lies to people she claims to care about. The real you is someone who believes she can purchase her way out of any predicament, including this one. That's not fair, isn't it? You're a billionaire, Serafina. You could literally acquire this entire town if you desired. How am I to know this isn't just another acquisition for you? How am I to know you won't simply grow bored and move on to the next intriguing project? Serafina felt something irrevocably fracture within her chest. Because I love you, she stated, the words torn from the very depths of her heart. I love you, and I have never uttered those words to anyone before in my entire life. Ilara's face crumpled, and for a fleeting moment, Serafina believed she might be forgiven. But then Ilara straightened, her expression hardening with a chilling resolve. Love isn't enough if there's no trust, she said quietly. I believe you should return to the city, Serafina, back to your real life. No, Serafina pleaded. This is my real life now. You are my real life? No, Ilara repeated, turning away. I'm merely a chapter in your narrative, a brief vacation from reality. But reality is calling, and it's time for you to answer. Serafina watched Ilara walk away, her heart shattering with each deliberate step. She yearned to follow, to fight, to discover the words that could somehow mend this irreparable fissure. But she knew Ilara was correct about one fundamental truth. She had shattered the trust between them, and she possessed no idea how to reconstruct it. That night, Serafina sat alone in the cottage, surrounded by the poignant remnants of the life she had meticulously constructed in Oak Haven. Ilara's homemade apple butter still sat on the kitchen counter. A worn copy of a novel they had been reading together lay open on the coffee table. A cherished photograph they had taken at the Harvest Festival was tucked into the mirror frame by the doorway. Her comms device vibrated. Her legal counsel again? Serafina, thank goodness. We require your immediate presence. The investigation is concluding, and critical decisions must be made. The board is convening tomorrow to deliberate your future with the company. Serafina stared out the window at the distant twinkling lights of Oak Haven. Somewhere out there, Ilara was likely weeping, probably hating her, probably wondering how she could have been so profoundly mistaken about someone. I'll be there, Serafina finally stated, her voice devoid of emotion. As she began to meticulously pack her belongings, Serafina realized she was on the precipice of losing everything that truly mattered to her. Her company, her meticulously crafted reputation, her meticulously planned future. None of it held any intrinsic meaning without Ilara. But she had made her fateful choice 6 weeks prior, when she had opted to conceal the truth, and now she was compelled to live with the agonizing consequences. The following morning, Serafina loaded her vehicle and cast one last lingering glance at the cottage that had briefly served as her sanctuary. Then she drove through Oak Haven one final time, past the vibrant farmers market where she had first encountered Ilara, past the serene orchard where she had learned what the concept of home could truly feel like. She did not stop. She could not bear the thought of witnessing the hurt in Ilara's eyes again. As the Vermont hills receded in her rearview mirror, Serafina felt an acute sense of leaving her heart irrevocably behind. She was returning to the city, to her vast empire, to the life she had meticulously built upon ambition and a profound sense of isolation. But she would never again be the same person who had departed 6 short weeks ago. Ilara had irrevocably transformed her, had revealed what love could truly be, what life could truly be. And even though she had seemingly lost it all, Serafina knew she would spend the remainder of her life profoundly grateful for those perfect, impossible weeks when she had experienced genuine happiness. The Zenith Tower felt like a monolithic mausoleum upon Serafina's return. The familiar, gleaming marble lobby, the express elevator ascending to the 55th floor, the expansive corner office with its commanding panoramic vista of the city, everything that had once epitomized her boundless success now felt utterly hollow and frigid. She had been absent for 6 weeks, but it felt like an entire lifetime had transpired. The emergency board meeting was a brutal, relentless ordeal. Serafina sat at the head of the colossal obsidian conference table, confronting a dozen pairs of eyes that ranged from palpable disappointment to openly hostile. The independent investigation had exonerated her of criminal wrongdoing, but the collateral damage to Vance Holdings' reputation was catastrophically severe. Stock prices had plummeted precipitously, major corporate clients had defected, and opportunistic competitors were circling like predatory vultures. The fundamental question, Marcus Thorne stated, his voice slicing through the palpable tension, is whether Vance Holdings can authentically survive with you at the helm, Serafina. The market has definitively lost confidence. Our shareholders are unequivocally demanding answers. Serafina listened with detached precision to the relentless litany of problems, the dire financial projections, the proposed drastic solutions. 6 weeks prior, this would have utterly consumed her, ignited an unyielding fight to protect her empire, compelled her to sacrifice anything and anyone to maintain her iron grip on power. But now, all she could vividly recall was Ilara's face at the moment of realization, the profound hurt, the raw betrayal, the way her eyes had become cold and distantly unfamiliar. Serafina, Marcus's voice cut through her detached thoughts. We require a decision. The board is prepared to offer you an extremely generous severance package. You could gracefully step down, preserve your dignity, and we could bring in new dynamic leadership to meticulously rebuild confidence. Serafina slowly surveyed the faces around the table. These individuals she had collaborated with for years, people she had once considered strategic allies, if not genuine friends. But she now understood with chilling clarity that their relationships were as inherently transactional as every other connection in her life had been. When she was useful, they offered their unwavering support. When she became a discernible liability, they unceremoniously discarded her. I require some time for careful consideration, Serafina finally stated, her voice steady. Time is a luxury we simply do not possess, Marcus replied, his tone unyielding. The market opens in 3 hours. We require an immediate answer. Serafina slowly rose from her seat, her decision crystallizing with absolute clarity. "Then here is your definitive answer. I am stepping down as CEO, effective immediately. I will retain my shares, but I am entirely removing myself from all day-to-day operations." The room erupted in a collective murmur of stunned surprise. This was entirely unexpected. Serafina Vance never conceded without an epic fight. "Are you absolutely certain?" Marcus inquired, a rare note of genuine astonishment in his voice. "This is your entire life's work." Serafina thought of the profound, simple life she had briefly built in Oak Haven, of the elusive peace she had discovered in Ilara's rustic kitchen, of the breathtaking way the sunrise painted the Vermont hills. "No," she said quietly, her voice imbued with a newfound serenity. "This was my life's work. I am prepared for something profoundly different now." The ensuing days were a relentless whirlwind of legal paperwork, carefully choreographed press conferences, and extensive transition meetings. Serafina handled it all with a detached, almost ethereal efficiency that astonished everyone, including herself. The media painted her departure as a spectacular fall from grace, but Serafina experienced something far closer to an overwhelming sense of liberation. She sold her opulent penthouse apartment and the vast majority of her possessions, retaining only what she genuinely needed. The entire process was unexpectedly cathartic. She had spent so many years tirelessly accumulating material things, ostentatious status symbols that were supposed to unequivocally prove her inherent worth, but none of it had ever brought her true, lasting happiness. A week after formally stepping down, Serafina found herself in her legal counsel's office, meticulously finalizing the last of the intricate paperwork. "I must inquire," her lawyer began, a note of perplexed curiosity in her voice. "What precisely is your plan now? You remain incredibly wealthy, even after the substantial stock losses. You could effortlessly launch another company, invest in countless startups, perhaps even acquire a small nation if you so desired." Serafina smiled, a genuine, unforced smile for the first time in days. "I'm contemplating farming," her lawyer chuckled, assuming she was making a rather dark joke, but Serafina remained utterly serious. That night, Serafina sat in her temporary hotel room, staring intently at her comms device. Ilara's number remained conspicuously in her contacts, and she had started to call it a dozen times over the past week. But what could she possibly say? That she was profoundly sorry? That she had willingly relinquished everything to irrevocably prove her love was authentic? That she had finally grasped the fundamental distinction between superficial success and genuine happiness? All of it was undeniably true, but it did not alter the stark reality that she had lied, that she had fundamentally shattered Ilara's trust in the most egregious way imaginable. Instead, Serafina opened her laptop and began to meticulously compose. If she couldn't articulate the words aloud, perhaps she could articulate them in writing. "Dearest Ilara, I understand you likely have no desire to hear from me, and I profoundly understand why. I know that merely saying I'm sorry is woefully insufficient to undo the immense hurt I inflicted, but I need you to understand that I am sorry, more profoundly sorry than I have ever been about anything in my entire life. You were correct about everything. I was an unforgivable coward. I was so utterly terrified of losing you that I chose to lie instead of placing my trust in you with the raw truth. I was so profoundly accustomed to people desiring something from me, my money, my invaluable connections, my immense power, that I simply could not fathom someone loving me purely for who I am. But you did. You loved the person I became when I was with you, the person I blossomed into in Oak Haven. That person was more authentically real than I had ever dared to be before. You revealed to me what it truly meant to experience profound happiness, to be an intrinsic part of something far grander than myself, to love someone more deeply than I love my own consuming ambitions. I have officially stepped down as CEO. I have irrevocably left that life behind because I realized it was never truly living at all. I have no idea what the future holds, but I know with unwavering certainty that it will not involve attempting to buy my way back into your heart or presumptuously disrupting the beautiful life you have meticulously built. You unequivocally deserve far better than that. You deserve someone who trusts you implicitly enough to be profoundly vulnerable, someone who consistently chooses honesty even when it is terrifyingly difficult. I fervently hope that someday you can find it within yourself to forgive me, not for my selfish sake, but for yours. You possess far too much love within your heart to harbor anger indefinitely. I will love you for the rest of my life, even if I am never privileged enough to see you again. Serafina. Serafina reread the letter 3 times, her eyes scanning each carefully chosen word before finally hitting send. Then she gently closed her laptop, packed her few remaining personal belongings, and prepared herself for the uncharted next chapter of her life. She possessed no clear destination, nor did she know what she would do upon arrival. But for the first time since departing Oak Haven, she felt a fragile, burgeoning sense of hope. She had lost everything she had once believed mattered, but in doing so, she had gained something infinitely more valuable, the profound intrinsic knowledge of who she truly was and what she truly desired. The pressing question now was whether it was irrevocably too late to fully embrace that transformed person.